7 minutes past 12. Faster Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line today with the Treasury Minister and Member in Treasury. Taking your calls, answering your questions between now and 1. First of all, MHK yesterday reported 35 positive test results comprising 33 recorded via LFT and 2 PCRs. There are now 258 known active cases of COVID-19 on the Isle of Man, made up of 244 reported via LFT, 14 via PCR. That's 18 more than Saturday's total of 240. We have 2 people in Nobles and nobody in ICU with COVID. From the vaccination dashboard, now 69,338 first doses administered, 66,426 second doses, 49,268 boosters and 1,635 third doses have been administered. It's a grand total of 186,667 vaccinations. MHK is currently holding 8,576 shots of vaccine in stock. And Faster Mike, good afternoon. Sarah Maltby MHK and David Ashford MHK. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Andy.
Good to be with you today. And just talking of COVID, David Ashford, do we actually know how much the whole thing has cost? The vaccination.
It has been an expensive process. I mean, if you include business schemes as well, so for instance, just on business and individual support, we've spent about 133 million. Then there's also the cost of the LFTs on top. So an approximation would be it's just over the 200 million mark in total.
And that makes how much of a dent in reserves?
So thankfully our reserves have actually seen quite good growth over the COVID period. So we haven't had as much of a dent as we would have potentially thought.
OK, the budget was investing in our island's future, David Ashford. How do you see Treasury's role? Is it policy or does it facilitate everybody else's big ideas?
So Treasury is a facilitator. It's not for Treasury to be dictating policy to the departments. It's for the departments to come up with what they want to do as policy and then to ensure from Treasury's point of view that it matches the financial envelope available. OK, and I mean, does Treasury ever narrow its gaze and look sideways and thinks that's not a bad idea for any department? Well, obviously, as a politician, I do look at what departments are doing, and if I feel politically there's something not right, I'll go off to the Minister for that department and raise that. But it is for the departments themselves to decide what policies they want to pursue. OK,
and Sarah Maltby, just bring us up to speed then. What's your role? Obviously, there are Mr Henderson is in there, Mr Smith's in there, and you're in there along with the Minister. How do you see your role? What's your official role?
I'm the member responsible for Social Security, so quite a big responsibility, really. A huge, complex area, but that's where I am now. Yeah.
Okay, and that takes up an awful lot of money, doesn't it?
Awful lot of money and time, but it's the most important thing that we can do, really, is to get our Social Security night right for everybody, to make sure it's delivering what it needs to do.
Are we on the right track?
There's a huge transformational project underway at the moment, which is going to take a little bit of time, of course, but we really want to ensure that we meet the needs of our island residents, and that means working a lot with third sector to make sure that we're delivering what we say we're going to do, to make sure that everybody's feels the benefit.
OK, so who targets the social? Is that for DHSC to target, or what part does Treasury play in that?
So benefits actually rest within Treasury, and this is where confusion does set in. I used to have this when I was Minister for Health, with people contacting me about benefit queries, thinking of the old days of the Department of Health and Social Security. Social Security Division is now fully in Treasury, so Treasury is actually the department with the varies and responsibility as to what benefits are in place and how they are paid.
OK, so as far as that goes in the future, then let's just nail this down. DHSC bears what responsibility for it, and where does Treasury fit in? Who makes the decision?
So in terms of DHSC, they don't bear any responsibility for benefits. DHSC actually is a Department of Health and Social Care. Mm-hmm. So they have input, for instance, around the nursing home fee charges. In terms of the uplifts, they will come from DHSC. But in terms of the general benefits, so things like job seekers allowance, things like, for instance, income support, that is all contained within Treasury.
OK. David Ashford, how government, when we went through the election last year, every candidate said they wanted the public to know more about the functions of government and how it works. Do you think the public understands how Treasury works?
I think Treasury, actually, to be fair, it has always been one of those departments shrouded in a bit of a myth. You raised one of those myths right at the start of the programme where people think Treasury dictates policy to government departments. That is not Treasury's role whatsoever. I think, I think there's plenty of stuff online if people want to go online onto the gov.im website around all the different departments, Treasury included. So I think, I think those who want to understand more, there is information sources out there. But I think for most people just want to see a functioning government overall rather than actually delving into the individuals of each department.
Okay, and there's always been this, as you mentioned, people have this image of what the Treasury Minister sits there with his or her arms folded saying no to everything. Is that your role?
No, I don't have some big red pen to start crossing things out. My role is to ensure that money is spent prudently and that anything that comes through from the departments actually matches within the financial envelope of government. Council and Minister sets the overall government priorities. We've just had the Island Plan go through Tynwald, and off the back of that, there will be department plans coming forward to Tynwald as to how the departments can deliver on. And then Treasury has to look to set the financial envelope around those.
David Ashford MHK, Sarah Maltby MHK, with us through to one of you. And give us a call 66 13 68. Text on 166 177. You can also WhatsApp on that if you stick us in your contacts, or email studio@manxradio.com. And David's with us first of all. So, David, you're live with David Ashford and Sarah Maltby.
Hi, Andy. Just quickly, two questions to ask to the Treasury Minister is that regarding the past experience from the last Tynwald, which he was in, regarding Treasury's overseeing of financial implications and making sure that the budgets was set in the right positions, can he give us an assurance now that the overspends that were on the promenade and also at the Liverpool landing stage, although the Liverpool landing stage was endorsed by Tynwald, that they won't happen again? What I'm trying to say is, when Tynwald budget for stuff, it should be contained, and a Treasury, whether you like it or not, have a role to make sure those budgets are adhered to.
Most definitely, David. Yeah, Treasury has a very central role in that. And some of the things that are changing is, for instance, the centralisation of capital projects. At the moment, capital projects are based within the departments. And, to be fair, it's not fair to the departments in many ways, because they're trying to do a day-to-day job and they don't necessarily have the expertise to be managing all of those projects, particularly the high-value ones. So one of the things that's being looked at is how we centralise those capital projects across government with values of over, say, £2 million and have some form of central capital projects unit. But the other thing, and I've been quite open about this, I mentioned it during the passage of the budget, that I want to do as Treasury Minister, is there's an awful lot of scrutiny of what goes on when departments put bids in for things and before the money is awarded. I want to see scrutiny after the fact. So I want to see much more scrutiny around, right, you've been given the money's there for you to deliver this, and that's both revenue and capital. What is the actual outcome? Because it's the outcomes that actually matter. So I actually want to reverse the process slightly and have much more scrutiny on after the fact and how the money is being spent.
Right, great. The other question would be is regarding red diesel. I don't know whether you know, but come April, red diesel can't be used for likes of builders, certain farmers who maybe have a JCB and do a little bit of building work on site to supplement their farming issues, and they've got to flush the tanks out. Can I just ask you, David, were you aware of it? And B, why weren't we considered in the consultation exercise for red diesel? Because the likes of building firms who have static equipment were using red diesel, and I couldn't see a problem with that. And they're going to go to white diesel, which is going to double that cost. And I'm led to believe, and I've had no kickback on it, to say that when the energy from waste plant heats up, was using red diesel. And I just wondered, that's going to cost us more money in waste charges, and property is going to be bigger. Why didn't we have some consultation when we always can say or differences that make us different?
Right, I am aware of this, and it's actually tied into our reciprocal agreements with the UK. So it's a change that's been made by the UK government, but because of our VAT and fuel agreements with the UK, it automatically applies to the island as well. If we don't go down that route, that means we effectively are breaking our reciprocal links, particularly around VAT. So it will apply to the island. I am aware, and I have spoken to several people who will be affected by this. As particularly those who use, as you say, farming vehicles, potentially for on-the-side construction projects as well. So it is going to have an impact. We fully recognise that, but it is a change that the UK has dictated, and as long as we've got the reciprocal agreements in place with the UK, it is a change, therefore, we need to follow. If we don't, the only other option is to break our reciprocal agreements with the UK, which has an awful lot of unintended consequences, particularly around VAT.
Is there any chance of a guidance note to come out from Treasury or to give us guidance what we're going to do? Because people, like from the 1st of April, have got to do several things. And what's the sense in picking somebody up who's had red diesel in their vehicle before? And how long is it? Well, it's going to cost them a fortune to wash the system out, and it's still going to have traces. So are we going to have some leniency from the government department?
Yeah, so in relation to guidance, because like I say, it is a UK change, I believe there has been a guidance note issued by the UK government, if I remember correctly. It was issued about a month ago and can be found online on the UK government sites. And I think that's where people have been being directed to, because the guidance and practice notes that apply in the UK will also apply here. So rather than reinventing the wheel, because all we'd be doing is saying exactly the same thing, just rebranding it with Isle of Man government, people are being directed to the practice note that's been put out in the UK because it's the same rules.
Yeah, did we actually comment on the consultation from Isle of Man PLC?
So my understanding is we did make a representation to the UK government. I wasn't in post at that point, so I don't know what that representation said. But
I'd love to see it.
But I think, off the top of my head, I think there was a representation back. I don't know if it was formally through the consultation or by a different means, but I certainly think there was conversations that were had.
Okay,
I'll write to you. Thanks, bye.
Thanks very much indeed. And here's Frida. Hello, Frida. You're live with the Treasury.
Right. Hello, David.
Hello, Frida.
Hi, love. It's Frida Roddy speaking. What I'm on about is now the tax. Why should we pay on account on a bill? Now, you get your bill, right? You pay your bill, and then there's another amount that you pay on account. Now, why should we do this? What if a person hasn't got that amount to pay, to be able to pay it?
Yep, so payment on account is normally for those who do freelance work or self-employed in general. So what it actually is it's covering the potential tax amount for the next following year ahead. Now, the reason behind that is to help people spread their tax liability and ensure that there is money received to cover the tax. I know years ago, it's exactly the same in the UK. Again, it's something that actually mirrors. But I know that years ago when it wasn't in place, there was issues around people actually getting to the end of the year and not necessarily having put the money aside, and were ending up with tax bills that were unaffordable. So the big hit on payment on account is obviously the first year you do it, because the first year you do it, you're getting a double whammy. You're paying that year's tax and the following as well. But obviously it mitigates out once you reach the following financial year. So it's about tax flow. If people are having problems in that regard as well, I'd always urge them to go and speak to the income tax division.
How is this affecting you, Frida?
Yeah, no, it's not affecting me really. But the point is, if you were a person that didn't, you could pay your tax bill, right? Your tax bill comes in and you pay it. Now, then there's another bill for payment on account. Now, why should you pay on account? What if that person can just afford to pay that bill and look forward to paying his other bills, winter bills especially, and they've got to fork out another bill to pay in advance? That person might not just have enough to cover himself for the winter or for the oil or the gas, whatever. So the Treasury are taking our money. on account?
Well, like I say, the impact for someone on that should only really be in the first year, because that's when they get effectively the double bill. Because the next year, although you'll get an income tax, your income tax breakdown, what you have previously paid should cover that, because you've paid on account. So if after the first year, rolling forward, there should only be the one bill, which is the payment on account, unless, of course, the person has earned more than was anticipated, in which case there's tax due on that amount as well. But it was around spreading out the liability and ensuring that the amount of money is actually there, because like I say, there were previously problems, which I am aware of, before payment on account came in, where people would get to the end of the year, they haven't put aside enough money to cover their income tax, and that then caused more serious problems. But like I say, if anyone does have problems in terms of income tax, please do engage with the income tax division. Please speak to them.
Well, the worst thing to do is to say nothing, I'm taking.
It is.
If you ignore the tax authorities, they tend to get rather... they feel a bit lonely, let's say that way.
Yeah, I would urge anyone, if you've got issues, please engage with the income tax division, and they will see, obviously, within the confines of the law they have to operate within, what there is to be available. But like I say, with payment on account, it's only that first year where there should be double billing, because after that, what you've paid the previous year should cover that following year's tax bill.
OK, all right, thank you, Frida. Remember, there's only two things certain in life, and we know what they are. Eric's with us now. Hi, Eric. You're live with David Ashford and Sarah Maltby.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
I wanted to talk about tax credits, Minister. When Minister Tier was in office, the tax credit for those that don't pay income tax was £700 per head. Then Minister Tier reduced it to £500 per head. Then the next year he reduced it to £400 per head. Now that's been in place now since Minister Tier left office, and it's never been altered ever since. And it's supposed to be because to make up for when tax thresholds are increased, so that we're not affected by it. But we are affected by it because it's never gone up in the last 5 or 6 years. And I just wonder, and you never mentioned it again in your budget speech this year either. I just wondered whether you were aware of that.
Yeah, so in relation to tax credits, it is, I quite accept the fact they haven't generally moved over the last couple of years.
They haven't moved at all.
Well, yeah. Basically in relation to that, it is one of those things that we do have to look at in the round. Personal allowances have been increasing, and you're quite correct on that. And we feel that has had an impact across the board on most people. Particularly if you look back over the last 6 years, personal allowances have increased by much more than they have even across the water in the UK. So people are getting the benefit in other ways, potentially.
I appreciate that, Minister, but we don't pay tax anyway, so it doesn't affect us. But our expenses and our costs are going up year by year, and this year it's going to go up quite considerably, and we've still got to manage on £400.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've also done, of course, is in relation to the other benefits and bonuses around. They have increased. So we've been seeing increases, for instance, over the last 6 to 10 years, higher in the state pension. We've been seeing higher increases in relation to those who may get income support. So we've been doing it in other ways rather than through the tax credit system.
But the increase in the state pension this year doesn't cover the cost of inflation, unfortunately.
Well, actually, when it comes to pensions, it has to be taken in the round, because if you actually
I agree with you on that. It has to be done with regard to what happens in the UK, I suppose.
Yeah, we are tied into a reciprocal agreement, and I mean, I'm more than happy to. The pensions.
I wondered whether you would have a look at this, Minister, because I think it's something that is not only affecting us; it may be affecting other people as well. Because our costs are actually going up and up and up, and this year there's going to be no exception.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to take away and look at the tax credits in relation, which you've raised. But just to say, in terms of pensions, if you actually even just look back over the life of the last administration, so go back to the April 2016 budget, for instance, inflation's been 14.9% CPI inflation since then. Average earnings have gone up by 15%, median earnings by 14%. But even if you exclude the 3.1% in this year's budget, the basic state pension over that period periods risen 17%, and for those entitled to the Manx state pension 18%. So state pensions have actually, over the life of the last administration into this, bang up to date, actually risen above both inflations and average and median earnings.
OK, all right, Eric, thanks for calling today.
Thank you for that, Minister, and I hope you will look into it, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I will take it away.
OK, 26 minutes past 12. We're talking Treasury. We're talking the budget today. Last Tuesday, it all happened with David Ashford, MHK, Treasury Minister, and the budget speech. What does it mean to you? Have you got any thoughts on the matter? Particularly, well, again, regarding tax, Sarah Maltby is here, of course, looking over the Social Security budget and the benefits and what have you. If you want to, then get in touch as soon as you can.
Great plans deserve a rewarding start. So, when you're ready to go for it, discover HSBC's latest range of offers. Make the most of the perks of a personal banking experience. Ask in branch or search HSBC online. HSBC, opening up a world of opportunity.
Visit the HSBC website for full terms and eligibility requirements. HSBC Bank plc Isle of Man branch is regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Commission.
Living in the Isle of Man, everyone knows the unpredictable power of the Irish Sea. All too often, the weather can cause disruption to the island's delivery of food and other essentials. There is a Manx company which, thankfully, has anticipated these problems. ShopRite. Thanks to their forward planning combined with spacious, well-stocked warehouses, your food supplies won't be disrupted by the weather. The shelves at your ShopRite store are full of everything you need. ShopRite, proud to serve our island.
Discover Bathline, the new name in bathrooms at Haldane Fisher. Visit their brand new bathroom and tiles showroom in Douglas for a stunning range of bathroom styles and designs. Or get inspired online at bathline-bathrooms.im. Whether traditional or contemporary, Bathline's dedicated in-house bathroom designers will bring your dream bathroom to life. Bathline at Haldane Fisher, designed for living.
Join Ben and Sean each weekday morning on Manx Radio's Breakfast Show to play along with Small Talk. Yay!
Be listening from 8:30 for your chance to win an incredible tech bundle worth over £2,000 from Waltons.
What are we talking about this week?
If you can guess, just text your answer to 166 177, and if it's right, you'll be in the draw to win.
Manx Radio Small Talk, every weekday morning on The Breakfast Show.
With Holmes and Davison's Opticians and your nation's station, Manx Radio.
On Agenda tonight, we hear reaction to last week's budget. Speaker Watterson and Tim Glover are concerned that commitment to rebuild the crumbling Castle Rushen High School has weakened. Minister Laurie Hooper is well pleased at the $8 million a year increase in health budgets, and Claire Christian MHK explains why she voted against the budget. That's all on Agenda tonight at 6 p.m. with me, Phil Gaughan, also available as an extended podcast. Should you be worried that it's not clear who'll foot the bill for all this?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
29 minutes after 12. Richard, hi, you're live with David Ashford and Sarah Maltby.
Good afternoon, David and Sarah.
Good afternoon.
Well, I have several questions regarding the loan that was approved in the last Tynwald. Are you both content that this is an acceptable risk to take? You're borrowing £400 million, which it was admitted you don't really need to borrow, and you're gambling that you're going to be able to make more money in the stock markets than the cost of the loan is. According to my back of a fag packet calculation, you're immediately going to have a revenue hit of £11 million to pay the interest on this loan and the cost of investment managers for the £400 million. So is this the sort of risk that you're both content taking with public money?
Well, if I can go first in relation to that, Richard, the answer is actually yes, because what the 400 million bond has allowed us to do is it's actually allowed us to refinance existing debt. So it's allowed us to refinance up to 160 million of the existing loan with the steam packet, and also to finance the Manxman vessel. What that actually means is the rate we can actually loan at is lower than what they would have got going out to the market. So that actually means the ultimate returns to government potentially as shareholder will be higher, and it's also allowed us to refinance £178 million of the debt outstanding with the MUA as well on capital schemes. And so what it's done is it's changed the interest rate. The point at which Treasury went into the bond actually was at an historically low level. So if you actually go out and plot the graphs at the point we actually managed to get the 400 million, it's the very, very bottom point, practically to the day, in fact. So the effective yield on the bond is 1.687%. And so that means the coupon actually, because everything gets rounded to 0.125%, the actual coupon on the bond is 1.625%. So that is actually historically exceptionally low.
Yeah, but still looking at it, you're still taking a gamble, because actually you had reserves and you had no need to borrow money at all. You could simply pay those loans off out of reserves. So the risk you're taking is still there. You're still gambling that you can make more on the stock market than the cost of the loan is.
Well, no, what we've got to be very careful of is about the reserves. I mean, the reserves are roughly, because it changes obviously with market movements, 2.1 billion. But we have to remember $1 billion of that figure that's always quoted as the National Insurance Fund. The general reserve is roughly around about £462 million. So we just need to be a bit careful. There's other things we can do with that bond money as well. It's not a case of just banking it away and saying that, we'll hope we'll be able to outpace the market. We've got issues around climate change. There's also the housing and communities work that Chris Thomas's board needs to undertake. There's all sorts of things that government needs to prioritise over the next few years, and the money should be able. But like I say, the coupon rate on that effective yield on that bond is actually the lowest at any point in the market.
Okay, what was your next question, Richard?
Well, it concerns whether he's content with the management of the reserves. What are the parameters that are put on the investment managers, and what benchmark are they measured against?
So in terms of the reserves and the investment managers, I have to be careful what I say because there's a live tender at the moment in relation to investment management. But in relation to the investor management, basically what we actually look for is we look across what the actual best in class is for that type of investment. There is different mandates for different types of investments. We don't put all our eggs in one basket. So there is different mandates within, but their performance is measured against their peers in their particular industry. So depending upon what the investment management is for, we actually measure it, and there's lots of information out there which is easily accessible to be able to see what the best-in-class managers are doing and whether actually our investment managers are performing against that benchmark. Okay. And that's what we assess against.
All right. Richard, thanks for calling today. We appreciate that point, mate. Just to say, and you mentioned it before, David Ashford, we effectively made money out of the COVID. Our reserves went up. We used our investment portfolio, produced very good results. So we did manage to use a lot of the interest built up on the reserves, but we have to remember, of course, you've got to factor inflation into that as well. So we actually did come out a lot more robust than many of our compatriot nations around the world, but it wouldn't be me if I didn't sound a note of caution there, which is there's a lot of challenges coming up. And we've also got to remember that we now need to be ensuring that we've got adequate reserves in the good times to come, ready for if other events happen. Yeah. The one thing we found as a nation with COVID was having those reserves in place was absolutely crucial. But just again, I'll just reiterate what Richard said. And again, it is the factor of risk. Mm-hmm. So as a Treasury, are you risk averse, or do you favour a risk?
Well, you can't do everything without risk, let's be perfectly honest. Nothing is without risk. I mean, if someone turns around and says any form of financial transaction is without risk, then I'd question the basis on which they're saying that. But like I say, what the bond has allowed us to do, and it's actually, from my point of view, a really, really good news story, is, like I say, it's allowed us to finance 160 million of the existing loan with the steam packet and the Manxman vessel at a much lower rate than they would have been able to borrow it from the markets. And again, with the 178 million refinancing of debt on capital schemes for the MUA, again, we've been able to do that at a historically low rate, and that will have an effect on the public finances going forward in reducing the costs.
Tony, you're live with David Ashford and Sarah Maltby.
Hello, David. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Tony.
I hope you're having a good day and you've managed to stay safe.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
bearing in mind that the weather's here. My concern, and I follow on from the previous caller, but a slightly different slant. I'm concerned that the 400 million might be a good windfall. You might have done a great job getting a low rate. How are we going to finance the future that Tynwald has said we're going to be carbon neutral, which means buying carbon credits, by 2030, I think? So my question is, where are you going to get the money from to go carbon neutral? How are you going to do that?
Well, I
don't see any plans from anyone, including our climate change group, that says they have an idea of how they're going to do it.
So at the moment, the plans are drawing up. It will be for the Climate Change Board to come forward with what they believe is feasible and how they achieve that aim. There's 42 million allocated across the budget this year in relation to climate change. And I think one of the other things, though, I do need to emphasise is something, and you've given me the opportunity again, so I'm glad you have, that I say at every opportunity, which is government can't be expected to pick up the entire tab for climate change. The taxpayer, it's just not feasible. The only way we will deliver on our net zero targets is by collaboration with the private sector and the community as a whole. Government can act as a facilitator, but government can't pay for everything. The one thing I would say, though, in terms of climate change cost, even if we weren't going for a net zero target, even if we weren't doing anything around climate change, there's a lot of those costs that would come our way anyway, such as the cost, some of the high value stuff like the costs for the interconnector, and also the turbines in the power station, which I think in 2031, I think is the date, when they are effectively redundant. Regardless, even if we did nothing around climate change, those huge costs would still be there. But it's going to have to be a partnership. I've always been quite honest in that government will not be able to fund absolutely everything. I don't know if Sarah's...
Yeah, but the numbers that we're talking about are absolutely staggering. You know, as a new member into Treasury, I'm questioning it and challenging as much as I can do, really, to make sure that we are getting the best value for the public purse. It's so important that we get it right. But as the Minister's just said, you know, we can't fund absolutely everything, not especially if we want to make sure health, social care, education, some of these really core services are provided as well. We need to make sure that it's the net needs to be cast as wide as it can, really.
So who else is going to pay then if it's not just the public person? Business?
Yeah.
So there's things that businesses can do, for instance, Andy, and a lot of businesses are doing it anyway. So most of the businesses I go out to, particularly those that are limited companies with shareholders are looking for that now. Mm-hmm. It's become quite a demand of shareholders to say, what are your green credentials and what are you doing about it? Mm-hmm. So that move, I think, is naturally occurring in a large part of the private sector. We also need to work with the public on what we can do. I've always been very cautious around this, as I am with most things. And I've always said with climate change, what we've got to be very careful we don't do is run off on some great fancy projects that then turn out not to be the direction of travel. The way I always described it, and I described it during our debate in Douglas North at the election, Andy, was it's a bit like the VHS Betamax debate. Everyone thought it was going to go one way and then went the other. So we need to focus in on the costs of things we know works, like insulation in people's homes and helping to facilitate people to make those small changes that have the biggest impact.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, well, that sounds really good. But I'm still struggling with how you're going to come up with the billions of pounds that will be needed to go net zero. And Daphne Kane has ignored and said she will not develop, and I assume that you're part of that, a gas field which would be a beneficial thing for the Isle of Man and also a beneficial people for the Manx people.
Well, that's
Well, I'll come in on this, Andy, because it came up during, I think, the last time I was on Mannin Line, and I'll be absolutely clear on the gas. My personal view, and it is my personal view, is we shouldn't be ruling anything out. I stated that when last time I came on this programme. My personal view is that we need to consider all options. That doesn't mean we should develop the field, but it means it should be assessed and considered.
I think that's a very, very sensible approach. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. What I'm saying is we should not be ruling out things which potentially will save us millions and millions of pounds, because I see very clearly on the horizon a gas crisis going on for the next 10 years. If Russia does invade Ukraine, you will have a gas crisis.
Okay.
Full stop.
All right. Appreciate your call. Thanks for that, Tony. Here's Andrew. You're live. You want to talk to Sarah Maltby? Is that right, Andrew?
Please.
Okay.
Hello.
Sarah, and hi, David.
Hi, Andrew.
In the budget there, you've effectively pre-funded £42 million towards climate change. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. £42 million, £25 million for the Climate Change Board, and then the rest of the money for different schemes that are within the departments.
So how much, please, do you expect will be spent in this forthcoming financial year of that £42 million?
Basically, in the forthcoming financial year, there's the Environmental Protection Fund, which we think of £3 million, which is available to spend. There's the Climate Change Adaptation budget of £9 million and the mitigation budget of £5 million. They're the ones most likely to be spent. The new Climate Change Fund of £25 million, that would depend on what comes forward as proposals from the Climate Change Board.
And those proposals come to Treasury, and then Treasury consider the proposals along with the Climate Change Board to make sure the money is the public. If this is public's money, isn't it? We need to make sure it's going to the right places and that we're all on board with it.
So earmarked at the moment, you would expect a drawdown of around about 17 million.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, following on from that, then, I hope you will agree it's a complete blot and shame on the Isle of Man that there's a food bank. So, please, Sarah, what are you intending to do this financial year to remove the requirement for people to go to a food bank?
Well, Social Security plays one part in this puzzle. I mean, we can't be expected to reach absolutely every part of the community, and that's why the collaboration that we have with third sector is so important. The two need to work hand in hand to ensure that we're able to meet and to try and reduce the fact that people do need to use food banks. That's something that, as an island, I'm not proud of at all. 4 months into the job, it's we're reviewing absolutely every benefit that we actually have and making sure that we're delivering it in the right way. From my experience so far, a lot of people don't actually know what they're eligible for, and it's actually trying to raise that awareness to say, if you are struggling, please come and speak to us. I mean, Social Security Inquiries Line, if I may just share that number, is 685-656, or you can email socialsecurity@gov.im. Please reach out and ask, because the last thing we want people to do is to feel like there isn't anybody that can help, and we need to find out these problems in order to be able to better support people.
Andrew, what do you think the way out of the food bank issue?
Well, I mean, that's very good what Sarah's saying, but there has to be some point even at the food bank that the people are told, here's the number for Social Security, here it is, go and speak with them. And if they have repeat people coming back, there has to be some questions as to why these people are continually coming back.
Yeah, no, I fully support that, and I appreciate that. I think raising awareness and trying to get out there and to say, please come and ask. I mean, quite often people feel like they're not too sure. I don't want to bother anybody, and that's the last thing. Please come and talk to the team, because actually the counter service is also open 9 till 1 every morning, and we have Ramsey Town Hall, which is provides an outreach hub as well. As long as I'm within Social Security, it's trying to get out into the community to try and help to spread that message, and that does mean working with the third sector to ensure that the people who are delivering that service to our customers basically actually know as well what's available, because they have the best relationship with some of the people who are struggling the most, so they can pass that information on for us and raise that awareness. And I really do think that's the most important, crucial part in this, and that we need to talk to each other, because if we don't do that, then we can't really move forward to make the system better.
And if I could just very quickly chip in, just to say in relation to that, there's 2 key points from my point of view, which is first firstly, we need to understand the underlying reasons as to why people are ending up at the food bank. I don't think we fully do understand that yet, and we need to engage with the food bank around the profiling of their customers and see why people are actually having to turn to the food bank. But in relation to social security, one of the other parts of the transformation is on an online portal where an apply once mechanism is being used. So rather than now where you apply for an individual benefit like income support only to be told you don't qualify and that's the end of it, this will now assess you across all benefits. That's the plan from the transformational programme over the next 12 months. And that means then that people will only apply once and then they'll be told what they're entitled to, rather than this system now, which, you know, I fully accept isn't as nimble as it should be, where people might apply for a particular benefit only to be refused because they don't qualify, but they're not aware they qualify for something else.
Okay, and that's massive. That's such a change, and that is really transformational.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, now.
Thanks for calling today. It's 14 minutes to 1 on Manx Radio. Mannin Line is on with David Ashford MHK and Sarah Maltby MHK, the Treasury Minister and the Member of Treasury.
When you need a fitting memorial or headstone for a loved one, contact Manx Memorials in Peel. This long-standing family-run Manx company offer a wide range of granite and marble headstones and memorials, along with an island-wide inscription and renovation service. Manx Memorial's skilled professionals will take the time to help you choose a suitable memorial, and we're proud to say we'll beat other local quotes. Call 843-861 or email matthew@manxmemorials.co.uk.
Whether you like live music, theatre, film, or running around in circles pretending to be a superhero, you'll love Villa Gaiety. With Dragon's Castle Play Area, Broadway Cinema, Gaiety Theatre and the Villa Marina. Check out the upcoming events at villagaiety.com or call 600 555. Villa Gaiety, the island's premier entertainment venue.
There's final reductions at Millichap's Big Sale on furniture, beds, flooring and more. One-off clearance items never to be repeated. It's the perfect time to furnish your home with style at the Millichap's biggest ever sale. Sale ends this Saturday.
Get your COVID vaccine. Having the jab will increase your immunity and prevent hospitalizations. Either visit a walk-in clinic or register online at covid19.gov.im. Protect yourself, your loved ones and the wider community. Get your vaccination.
Riley's Garden Centre is searching for a part-time sales assistant who can create a great experience for every customer. If you're enthusiastic, proactive in selling with great social skills, phone 616-116 or just call into the store for a chat.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Eddie, you're live with the Treasury.
Right, just a couple of points, if I may. First of all, I heard you say then about the 140-odd million is public money. Since it's been announced, I don't think I've come across one person who agrees with you spending it on climate, simply because there's numerous things that can put it off. I mean, the air that we're getting is from all around the world. It's not from just here. So regardless of what money you spend on cleaning our air up, you need to get the whole rest of the world involved in that. Otherwise, we're going to be dead clean but getting dirty air. Second point I'm getting at is the fact that you also, with this new clean, carbon-free by such a date, you want me to buy an electric car. Well, I'm very familiar with chemicals, and they're called the deadly five. Two of them, one is cadmium, the other one is lithium. And you're asking us all to get cars that are full of batteries, full of that gear. And there's been numerous sort of publicity about cars just igniting for no reason at all. So the death traps. The other thing about both of these chemicals is we know that lithium, for one, is only cadmium, should I say, which I had the problem with Peel Harbour. There's only one company in the whole of this Western world who can get rid of it. That's in Germany. And it's pretty similar with the lithium. So we're going down the track of two deadly chemicals. You're asking the general public to have them. Have you made any allowance for people like me who wouldn't own an electric car if you give it me for free?
Okay, well, the amount of money that's being spent is, as you say, quite eye-watering. So, how do you view this? Some people don't quite get this.
No, but in relation to climate change, the key thing that Eddie said there was we're part of the wider world. The wider world is also going to have to do their bit, but they are also going to be driving technology. And what we've got to be very careful of is the Isle of Man doesn't get left behind. So, for instance, most countries now are announcing a date after which they will no longer produce or sell petrol cars. So the switch to electric will effectively be forced on us at some point, although actually it may not end up being electric. I mentioned before about the Betamax VHS debate. Hydrogen technology is actually moving on as well, but we can't just fall behind, because otherwise it's going to be foisted on us one way or the other, because we won't be able to source petrol cars anyway. And also some of the big value items, as I say, like the interconnector and also the replacement of the turbines in the power station, they're going to have to happen regardless of whether climate change mitigation is done. And we've got to have the infrastructure in place for electric cars if that is the way the technology goes longer term, because we just won't be able to source the other type because the rest of the world's moved on.
Okay, all right, thanks Eddie, because from one Eddie to another Eddie. Hi Eddie number 2, you're live with the Treasury.
Thank you very much. My first question to the Treasury Minister: does he think our National Health Insurance Fund is his own cookie jar?
Most certainly not, and I assume this is in relation to the 8.25 million that's going to be taken this year.
Plus the 46 million before, plus the 100 million last year.
Well, actually, in relation to the 100 million, that actually went to pay benefits, so it went to pay MIRA, etc. And benefits is one of the purposes of the National Insurance Fund. In relation to health and social care, this is a 1-year thing, and it is off the interest of the fund, so it does not deplete the value of the fund. And again, one of the purposes of the National Insurance Fund, and we need to have a wider public debate around this, particularly around social care, is actually to fund the health and social care. Health and social care each year receive actually a percentage of budget from the National Insurance Fund. There's a calculation that sits in the back that gives quite a number of millions to the DHSC anyway. Because they've got the shortfall this year of 8.25 in terms of gap funding, it was felt appropriate for it to come from the National Insurance Fund. The 44 million, which is being referred to, was of course the hospital, and that was a slightly different case because that was taken from the actual value of the fund with an actual pledge at the time, if I remember rightly, that it would be repaid to the fund, and the big issue was it was never repaid.
You're correct, and at that time the interest rate was 15%, so we're talking in the region of it being a shortfall of over 80 million.
Yeah, and also, of course, one of the other issues was the situation the National Insurance Fund was in at the time was very different, if I remember rightly. People who were around at the time might shoot me now, but I seem to remember there was issues around the long-term sustainability of the fund. We've actually did an assessment recently of the National Insurance Fund. It was in the last couple of years, which means the fund is sustainable on current forecasts until 2055, and there is going to be another national insurance review. But we also need to have honest conversations with the public around social care. What kind of model of social care do people want? Do they want it free at the point of delivery, or do they want something the same as it is now, or a mix between the two? Because all of that comes at cost, and we have to have that honest debate about how is that going to be paid for. Okay,
Eddie, we appreciate that, but we're running out of time, and just one thing I want to get to, Treasury Minister, if I may, and this is regarding the Income Tax Bill 2022, the new. I just noted something in there, and it was regarding a substance test for the certain Isle of Man relevant partnerships. What does that refer to?
So in relation to the substance test, this is in relation to the way that we deal with things internationally in relation to tax, and ensuring that we comply with our international standards, basically.
And what's a substance test?
So substance test is a technical language used in income tax terms. It's nothing to do with a physical substance. It's around how we actually apply our rules and our tax rules to make sure they are compliant.
Okay, and with that in mind, and with the nobody quite knowing where the world's going to go in the future, how much international pressure do you think will be brought to bear on the Isle of Man? Because we're an easy target for many people. We've had umpteen reports into our tax structure and the way we conduct ourselves. and we always come out smelling of roses.
Well, the key that's exactly the point, Andy. I mean, we as a jurisdiction are a responsible jurisdiction, and we do meet our international requirements. We have Moneyval, etc. assessments that have come back and actually shown that we are meeting those international standards. We haven't been grey listed as some other countries have been, and it's important that we continue to ensure that we do. We are a responsible jurisdiction, and we need to remain so.
And the FSC is responsible to you. It comes under Treasury, doesn't it?
It does, but we have to be very careful saying they're responsible to me.
Yes.
While the Treasury Minister has certain duties, the FSC is a completely independent regulator.
And how do you think the FSC has been conducting itself over the past few years?
So in relation to the way the FSC has been conducting itself, from my point of view, I think they have been an excellent regulator. They've faced challenges, as all regulators have in this sphere across the world, but they are rising to those challenges and they are constantly looking. I was talking with the chair of the FSC not that long ago about their proposals to look again at the way they work and their systems work.
OK, thanks for being with us today, Treasury Minister, and also thanks to Sarah Maltby, MHK, Member of Treasury. We ran out of time as always, so the open invitation, will you come back and see us again soon?
I'm always welcome whenever you're willing to put up with me, Andy.
All right. Thanks for that. Just a quick word regarding walk-in clinics today. The walk-in clinic is at Castletown Civic Hall. Opens in about 3 minutes' time. It's on till 5:30 for 12s and over. Tomorrow it's at Ramsey District Cottage Hospital from 1 to 5:30, and on Wednesday, Jerby Health Centre, if you're looking for a jab today. Thanks, loads and loads of calls we couldn't get to, and lots of texts and emails, but hopefully we'll get back to Treasury in the future. In the meantime, thanks to producer Barry Redfern, thanks to you for paying attention, and we'll do the same tomorrow at high noon for another Mannin Line on Manx Radio.